RadioFreedom.us is where you can find Angel Clark's show. It's kind of funny, Angel. I was listening to your Friday show, and we have fun here. We're very uncensored, and I make no doubts, and I certainly bring it to the forefront that I'm a big fan of mammalia, if you will. And you were talking about breast milk, and Rick, remember we were doing a story last week about breast milk?
I do.
Some of the things we didn't even realize. Now we started to discover cannabinoids.
They got lollipops,
which are actually connected, of course, to the central nervous system, as well as they happen to be in everyone's favorite plant. Oh, well, guess what? This is what we discovered by reading this article. A couple of things that babies actually tell their moms simply by breastfeeding. If the baby's not getting the right nutrition, the baby's saliva on the areola of the nipple will transmit to the woman what the breast milk is lacking, and the breast milk will change. I mean,
for real?
Oh yeah,
for real.
The women will actually start craving whatever vitamins she's missing.
Yes. Wow. Okay, and then you take it to, well, let's say the baby's a little cold or a little warm. Maybe the baby's a little warm. You just took her out of her blanket, and she's laying on the breast. The breast will adopt its temperature to the baby's temperature. Not the body, not the whole woman, just the breast.
That's amazing. That actually is like,
you know what I mean?
That's amazing. Think about how much we don't know.
It's like a smart boob.
And, well, the part
I bet you that drone driver ain't going to get PSTD.
But that's why I'm bringing it up, is because why aren't we trusting that natural voice, that natural inner voice in us, Angel, that says, you know what? Before Similac came out in the early 60s, and I wasn't allowed to breastfeed because I was born in 1961, and suddenly there was baby formula, and who knows if that's affected me my entire life. I do bitch about it, so it probably has. But the idea that maybe through all the things we're learning, the podcast, the broadcast, everything that's happening on the internet, we're learning. You know what we're learning? We're learning that we've been told life is complicated and busy and dizzy and scary, and it's the exact opposite. It's beautiful, it's simple in nature, and it never really needs to get complicated. And when we trust it and we go back to what it truly is, the answers are right there in front of us. And I use the female breast as a perfect example of that. What better nourishment for a growing child than directly from the woman who bore that child? Okay? No, we don't know. Now you need to puncture the kid's skin at 6 weeks and put a bunch of vaccines in him. And oh yeah, Mother Nature can't take care of your baby. We know what your baby needs, Angel Clark. And that's why I want to kind of bring it up, is because, I don't want to talk war for the entire show. I want to talk the idea that this generation that you speak of, the generation that's right behind mine, probably yours to be exact, maybe some of the answers we're looking for. And I talk about algae fuels and some of the very simplistic things we can do, solar energy, that we can get back to really finding our base, our foundation. And I think that's, you have to hit rock bottom first. The United States is hitting rock bottom with every one of these scandals that comes out. More and more people are waking up. But as we like to do on this show, we like to talk solutions. It's great to bitch and moan, Angel, and I'm sure you've spent many time on your show where you ranted and raved. But the most rewarding part of any show, I bet you've done, is when someone was on who was an author who had a great idea of how to change things for the better. I have so much hope when it comes to the people who right now are, I would say, roughly 17 to 22, which is, it's the generation after me. And a lot of it has to do, I think, with a lot of it is actually founded in the group Anonymous and the offshoots of that. Another example of Whistleblowers. Do you remember the Steubenville rape victim? How everything came out, all this information just kind of exploded all at once. It was from the Kentucky chapter of Anonymous, and he now has had his home raided by the feds. He's scheduled to come on my show, I think, on Wednesday to talk about it. But he's come forward and given his actual information because he's next. I mean, they're
Is he facing like 10 years?
I'm not sure what he's facing. I know that he's looking at a lot, and they're saying it's because he hacked into this or he hacked into that. But what I have found is that when you have so many people that care so much, if you throw one of us in a cage, it doesn't matter because we'll keep going. And I have so much faith in the group of people behind me just because I see that they don't stop. And I see that no matter what happens, they continue to be vocal. They continue to keep working. They continue to get information out. They continue to be informed. I mean, honestly, it's so inspiring. And I think it all has to do with the access of information that they've had as they grew up. Because, when I was growing up, I didn't have the internet. We played Oregon Trail. That was like the extent of the computer when I was in school. So when you see these kids now, they've just got access to so much information, and not all of them are doing something with it, but a large chunk of them are, and it makes me really, really happy and proud. It's like the revolution that's been going on in Turkey. They questioned the protesters there, and 81% of them said that they define themselves as libertarians, which I thought was fantastic.
That is crazy. They stole remember, Rick, we talked about them stealing the bulldozer and driving it to the prime minister's house?
Yeah.
I bet you that was a fun road trip. Imagine that, just, got your little gas mask on and you're just doing about 3 miles an hour down the road on a giant bulldozer. I love that idea. Danielle, ever see the movie Idiocracy?
I have.
Do you think we're headed towards it, or do you think we're headed to like Angel? She's got hope. I'm on the fence. I don't know. I'm a little worried. I think we're a little bit more towards Idiocracy right now.
I think we're actually closer to there now than most people want to admit. But I think, and I do agree with her on some levels, I think that, and just even like what you were talking about, there's so many more people, when I was growing up, my mom was like, oh, look at all these, chemical laden foods. They're great. Look at how fast I can make it. Where now we're starting to get back to real food and, and not trusting that, everything that gets put out because science says it's okay is okay. And we're getting back to a more natural way of life and wanting to do things more local and in our communities, which I didn't see growing up. Because we were in that, everything coming out is just the greatest thing in the world and life is going to be so easy because I have a microwave, where we don't have a microwave in our house, and I love it. And so I do think there's hope, because I think we're getting back to those things that nobody's been interested in for so long. But then, as generations are coming up, they do want that. And because of the information that's out there, and because you get to see both sides of the argument, where my parents only saw this is great and it's going to help you be quicker. Now you can see, yeah, but there's also another side to it. And so to me, the information and the new media and all that is doing so much for the next generation coming up that I think things are going to get better.
Alex, and I look at all the information that's coming out on the internet, and I kind of weigh it all, but I'm about 50-50 when it comes to being optimistic versus pessimistic. But as more and more scandals become surface level, mainstream media, where they're finally talking about it, it's kind of like the dinosaurs finally caught up with the new breed on the internet, and they're now acknowledging, and now they're all outraged, and how dare the government trample on the Fourth Amendment? And you know what? Even though I know they're assholes, and even though I don't trust them, and even though they're always late to the party, I'm really glad they're talking about it, because it's, like I said earlier in the show, it's permeating my 67-year-old Fox News watching brother. He's now tweeting, his girlfriend's now putting on 1984 references on her Facebook page. And I'm like, hey, you kidding me? I was saying that to you 10 years ago, and you would laugh and then going, oh, don't worry, we just need to go kill some terrorists, blah, blah, blah. And now, 10 years later, everyone in this country is starting to not fear their own government, which they always do, but not trust it. And Fox News is helping, say what you will, but right now, the more people talk about outrage, whatever the story is, whatever the topic is, and I know it's the right blame and the left this time, they get to do that. They're guys in office, the other guys in office. But you know what? More people are waking up. At the end of the day, pendulum's starting to swing the other way. It doesn't matter how it gets there.
Look, we go and talk to a lot of people. We go door to door, do a lot of efforts when it comes to getting the vote out. And the one common theme that most people have is that the government sucks. And that's, I don't care, Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter. Most people, for some reason, think the government sucks, which it does. But they all blame, a lot of them blame somebody different. These stories can tell you who to blame, and also can show you the history of why it was both sides that did it in order to make it happen. And right now, they're willing to listen because you have had these so-called crazy people. Everybody knows that person. Yeah, he said the government was going to do this all along. That guy, and again, I hate to use the word vindicated, but he's now been vindicated to the point where he will now be listened to. So the guy 10 years that said you were out of your mind are going to call you up and say, hey, man, is this the kind of stuff you were talking about? Like,